Hey, good evening and welcome everyone to the first iFlightPlanner for AOPA live stream. We hope everyone's staying safe and healthy, and hopefully conditions are improving just a little bit in your area, wherever you're from. My name is Eric Rush, and I'm with the AOPA product development team. And as you can probably tell, we're conducting this live stream fully remote from 3 different states, actually. So please excuse any technical difficulties that may arise. We'll do the absolute best we can do given the circumstances here. And as most of you are aware, a few months ago, we announced the sunsetting of our legacy flight planner. That flight planner was powered by Jepson for many, many years. But that system was built on a much older technology, and as web technologies evolve, it was becoming harder and harder to support it as time moved on. And we were also very limited in our ability from a development standpoint to provide any future enhancements and to implement some of the features that were being asked. So a decision was made that it was time to retire that system and to replace it with a system that was built using more modern technologies and based on industry standards. So we also wanted to make sure that whatever planner we ended up selecting provided the flexibility to adapt to member requests and needs. And not only in a web browser interface like our traditional legacy flight planner had, but also on mobile devices. And we'll talk about some of that a little bit later in the presentation. In the end, the product we ended up selecting was an existing product called iFlightPlanner. And AOPA worked very closely with the team from iFlightPlanner to develop a special version for AOPA that would be provided to our members as part of their membership. It's now been about a month since we launched iFlightPlanner for AOPA, and we received a great deal of feedback from our members, as well as some general usability questions. So for tonight's presentation, we compiled a list of the most common questions that our Pilot Information Center receives, and we're going to do more of a how-to format tonight and walk through on screen so you can see some of these common questions we get. And we're also going to provide some general tips on some features that may not be immediately obvious in the product. In addition, we just released this morning the first update to iFlightPlanner. That enhances some of the existing features that were in the product, and it also introduces some new features, all of which, by the way, were a direct result of member feedback right from you guys. So along with myself tonight, I've got Andy Matthews and John Burnside, and they're the co-founders of iFlightPlanner. And over the next 45 to 50 minutes, they'll be demonstrating the features and providing tips and tricks for getting the most from iFlightPlanner. Andy, John, welcome. Thanks for spending some time with me tonight.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate your team having us on tonight. We're excited about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Andy, let me start with you. A couple weeks ago we were talking, and you were telling me sort of the history and the background of iFlightPlanner and sort of the inception of how that actually started and what sort of caused that and made that evolve into a product. So before we kind of get started here, I don't want to take too much time, but if you maybe take a minute or so and just kind of go over for some of our viewers here, they might be interested in that story. I know I was, but give us a little bit of background on what started iFlightPlanner.
Sure. So John and I were roommates at the University of Michigan, and John has a really strong technology background. And post my career at U of M, I pursued a career in professional golf. Always had a passion for aviation, and unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, had an injury that forced me out for a few months. And that led me to some time to actually pursue my pilot's license. Like I said, it's always something I wanted to do. And as things would have it, when I first got my ticket, I was actually still on my paper ticket. Went out to the airport and had I don't want to call it a weight and balance issue, but the FAA was on site making sure that everything was squared away. And so when we fortunately the flight went off without a hitch and landed safely and all was good to go. But post that, it was one of those, there's got to be a better way. And really the idea for iFlightPlanner stemmed out of just a simple weight and balance calculator. But as John and I were starting to look through some of the resources that were available to us, there were some really good products that helped one or two steps in the process, but there wasn't really a comprehensive platform that really gave me the confidence that I was crossing my T's and dotting my I's as I worked through that flight planning process. And so John, with his technology background, we hashed some ideas literally on the back of a cocktail napkin. And from there we said, hey, if we're going to do this, if we're going to build iFlightPlanner, it wasn't even named iFlightPlanner at the time. But if we said if we're going to do this, we're gonna put forward a comprehensive platform that allows pilots to really do what they need to do as pilot in command and pursue. So iFlightPlanner was born in 2009. We launched the first version of it in February of 2010, and from there we can say the rest is history. And a lot of patience, hard work has brought us here tonight.
That's wonderful. I do. I love hearing the stories of how these things evolve and how they get started. I don't know. I geek out on that kind of stuff. Just being in product development, I always like to hear that background. So thanks for sharing that, Andy.
Absolutely. I appreciate you asking.
Yeah. So one of the first things that we're going to go ahead and get this kicked off and dive into this. And one of the questions we get a lot, we're going to sort of go in a somewhat logical order here, but there is maybe some questions about the different versions of iFlightPlanner. And like I said earlier, iFlightPlanner originally was a separate product before there was an AOPA version of iFlightPlanner. So John, could you just spend a minute and just kind of review the different versions of iFlightPlanner and how members can, if they are satisfied with the base version that is provided under membership, but if they want some more advanced features, how they go about getting those?
Certainly. Thanks, Eric. Just a quick little nugget. The day that I met Andy in college, he actually had already one of those plastic 747s in the corner of his desk. It was actually an old Northwest Airlines one. So as long as I've known Andy, he's been an aviation nut. So it's been a fun journey to go through with him and build my own passion for aviation alongside his. But so, pilots run a huge spectrum. We've learned over the last 10 years that from just your pilot, weekend pilot that's going to go out when it's blue skies to all the way to your advanced pilot that's flying maybe every day of the week, IFR conditions, et cetera. They run a huge spectrum. So our goal is to, without overcomplicating it, of course, is to provide versions that meet their needs, both from a feature standpoint and also from a price standpoint. Both of those are important to try and provide solutions that work for pilots. So I think the important thing for people to know is that for the general aviation market, we offer 3 versions. I'll try and break them down pretty distinctly so that people can help continue to understand where they fit in and which one might be best for them. So iFlightPlanner for AOPA, which will obviously be our focus tonight, is the version that is a member benefit for AOPA members. It's included in your membership at no additional cost, and you have access to that on the web from any browser. So whether it's a web browser at your home, at your desktop computer, or on your iPhone, or on your Android phone, or your tablet, as long as you have a web browser, a modern web browser, iFlightPlanner for AOPA is going to provide you essential flight planning tools. That's interactive route planning, that's weather briefing, and flight plan filing. And you can, again, access those from any web browser. So that's really version 1. And that's obviously for so many pilots over the last 4 weeks, AOPA members, that's become the version they've become familiar with and are getting to know iFlightPlanner, which is great. Version 2 on the second level is iFlightPlanner Core. That's our first upgrade version. And it really what it adds is full integration with our EFB package, which is iFlightPlanner for iPad and iFlightPlanner for iPhone. So now you have not only web-based flight planning with great feature set, with one touch, you have all that information now in your iPad or your iPhone. And that's an upgrade that's available at a discounted price for AOPA members at just $39.99 a year, which is a great value to have a fully synchronized platform like that. The third version is our premium version, and that brings in multi-leg planning with fuel stops. It brings in multiple performance profiles per aircraft, digital logbook, weight and balance calculation, and within the iPad and iPhone itself, it brings in ADS-B in reception, as well as georeferenced airport diagrams and approach plates. So great features to have in the cockpit, especially for those pilots that are flying in IFR conditions and really want to have all that data at their fingertips. So that's kind of an overview of the membership levels, Eric.
Great, and I know we've already had some members take advantage of some of those upgrades to get some more of those advanced features, which is, again, some of those features in there that we wanted to do with the Jebsen product. But like I said earlier, because of the limitations we had with that technology platform, we were sort of roadblocked a little bit on some things. And it is certainly not for lack of trying to introduce some features. We just weren't able to push that platform far enough. So we're really excited about having a new modern platform that we can extend and really enhance and bring those features that our members have been asking for. So while we're talking about those features, just give us a real quick, there might be some people here who have not actually used iFlightPlanner. How do they go about getting it, and what's the importance of going through the AOPA site first to get to iFlightPlanner?
Certainly. First and foremost, we worked closely with your team during the planning of this project to make sure that it is easy for pilots and for AOPA members to get access to iFlightPlanner for AOPA. We didn't want a cumbersome process. So it's really as simple as going to aopa.org/iFlightPlanner in your browser. As long as you're signed into your AOPA account, you'll have two buttons there, as you can see on your screen, the Flight Planner Home button and the Plan a Flight button. And that's really it. So we give you two buttons. One gets you to the home page of your flight planner, which kind of is your home base, if you will. But if you're ready to plan a flight and you're familiar with the system, the Plan a Flight button is there as well. So we'll go ahead and click on a Flight Planner Home, and that's going to get us right into the iFlightPlanner for AOPA interface, Eric.
Excellent, excellent. So the first time somebody uses and logs in through our website and they get into iFlightPlanner, one thing everyone should note, in case there's people who are watching this now who have not used iFlightPlanner yet, have not gone through this process, or there's going to be people watching this later. We did have some chat messages. I'm doing my best to monitor the chat messages, but we've got a real slim team here, so I'll do my best to try to do both things here. I did see a question if we were going to have this recorded so people could watch this later. Yes, we will certainly do that. You'll be able to get this on the AOPA YouTube channel later. But the first time somebody comes in to sign up for iFlightPlanner and go to the AOPA version, there is a little new member kind of setup. And one of the things we did is we provided all of the old flight plans from the Jepson-powered flight planner, all the pilot profiles, aircraft profiles, all that was provided to iFlightPlanner. But there is sort of an onboarding little process that we have to go through every person. And you just have to do it once. But John, could you just kind of walk us through that process just so people can see the 3 or 4 different steps that they should do?
Definitely. Well, first, we appreciate you moderating the 4 or 5 different screens you got going on over there to keep all this in action. So thank you for doing that. The new member setup is really about trying to help members get the most out of iFlightPlanner for AOPA. It's really designed to set you up in a simple process to get off on the right foot, if you will. So 4 quick steps that we'll walk through here, and Andy's going to help me navigate. Our home airport, so we're based out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. So the light blue boxes that you see, and I'm sure a lot of pilots have already gone through this. The light blue boxes are autocomplete fields. So start typing your city, start typing the airport code, and you'll see options pop up. It's as easy as clicking on the one that matches. It'll pop into the box, and those are the autocomplete fields. You'll see those in a few different places throughout iFlightPlanner for AOPA. Below that, you have your time zone selection, which helps us give default formatting for weather so that we can give you, not just what the UTC time or Zulu time is for that weather, but also what your local time is for that weather, as well as selecting your airport facility types. Most pilots are going to be on public airports only. That's going to be the type that you're going to use, but we provide those options if you're a helicopter pilot or looking for private facilities. These are just the default selections. You can always find all the airports and facilities available in our airport facility directory, but these are just how to set your defaults to again, get you off on the right foot with iFlightPlanner.
Awesome. Excellent.
So, on the next step here, we will jump to, I think we had a screen froze a little bit. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, thanks, Andy. So the next screen is My Airports. This just allows you to create a simple list of your favorite airports or your most common airports. When you sign into iFlightPlanner for AOPA, you're going to see that list on the right side of your Flight Planner homepage. It's going to give you a glance at the weather, so you just kind of have an idea. A lot of times that's going to be a regional set of airports around you. Gives you a pretty quick idea of what's there, as well as easy access to the airport information. Again, another light blue autocomplete box. We can simply type, say, Frederick, which is where AOPA is based. Easily find it in the list, and then add it to our My Airports. So add as many as you like. There's no limit. Totally up to you to customize this for your best use. So on the next screen of the setup, this is really designed for our flight instructors, our CFIs that are using iFlightPlanner for AOPA. iFlightPlanner offers a certified flight instructor directory. Not only that, if you find a flight instructor on Google, you'll find that the page is quite normally right at the top of the list. So this is a great way to create exposure for you as a flight instructor and find students nearby. Click the box, enter a few details about you as a flight instructor, and then move on to the next step. And then we'll review that, and you'll receive an email once you've been approved as a listing in our directory. There's no cost to you. It's part of your iFlightPlanner for AOPA and your AOPA membership. Last but not least, as Eric mentioned, we've brought over all of your data from the previous AOPA flight planner. We certainly didn't want you to have to recreate that, from aircraft to stored routes to flights. All that data is there. So, but there is one step. We have you tie your aircraft to a known aircraft model in our database. So the easiest way to do this is to type really any part of the aircraft model name. We know a number of members initially had questions about this. We actually, the first few days after launch, we made a few tweaks to this to help make it work the best possible for the members. But find your aircraft in the list. You'll see the serial number is listed there too, so it can help you identify even further when you have a model like the 172 that has a lot of variations to find that for you. So a couple of the benefits of doing this step is, one is that behind the scenes, we're already filling in flight plan filing codes in certain places to help make sure that your flight plans are filed accurately. Another great benefit of this is really for the pilot community and the aviation as a whole, is that by selecting your model, we can tie a number of aircraft together, and we can start to build more and more known performance profiles for aircraft. So as more pilots come along and use the system, there's going to be default data there. So by selecting this, you're really doing a favor to the aviation community in general, I guess, if you will. So we'll save selected models, and that's the end of the new member setup. We'll go ahead and click on My Account homepage there, Andy, so we can get to the Flight Planner home. I want to make one more point here, just while we're here, about how to access iFlightPlanner for AOPA. Once you're here, we recommend bookmarking this page. As long as you stay signed into your AOPA account and you have this bookmark, you pull up the bookmark in your web browser, it's going to get you right back here without having to go through any additional steps. So we definitely recommend bookmarking this page. That's the easiest way to get back to iFlightPlanner for AOPA each time you want to use it. So Eric, I think that's kind of the overview of the new member setup.
Okay, great. That looks very easy. And like I said, that is for everyone just doing this the first time. Most of the time when you do that the first time, it takes maybe 5 minutes to get through that. And then you really don't have to come back there too much unless you add a new aircraft or change something in your pilot profile. But that's a one-time setup, and then you can actually get in to start using it. One other part that you might want to set up, especially people who are filing IFR flight plans, is to be able to link iFlightPlanner to your Leidos account, or as most people know it, 1-800-WEATHER-BRIEF. And there are just a couple steps involved in that. You have to authorize iFlightPlanner and AOPA to be able to link to your account, and that's done on the Leidos site. But John, could you just take a minute and just kind of show what that looks like? That's been a question we've received a couple times, and our call center has walked people through that, so maybe we can show people right here how to do that.
Definitely, and we've worked closely with 1-800-WX-BRIEF. Their team has been great in helping make this new product, iFlightPlanner for AOPA, possible. But I want to first say, this isn't a required step, so you don't have to do this, but we certainly encourage you to do it. It's to create your pilot profile in your account at 1-800-WXBRIEF.com. And then link it to iFlightPlanner for AOPA, because that allows us to associate your flying activity and your planning activity with your official data, with Leidos, with 1-800-WX-BRIEF and the FAA, which can help if God forbid something were to happen. So all you have to do is, once you're in your account, is go to the service provider authorizations under the account menu there. You would click on the edit button, which is down below a little bit, and just select yes for iFlightPlanner and iFlightPlanner for AOPA, and then click save. And that's all you have to do in the 1-800-WX-BRIEF site to allow us to link to your account. It's that simple on that site. There's one more step then once we return to iFlightPlanner for AOPA. And that's to visit My Settings. And we want to point out where My Settings is here regardless, just because it's an area that we encourage all pilots that are using iFlightPlanner for AOPA to check out, because there's ways in there to customize your experience. You can see some of the information that we already went through in the new member setup, but you can always come back in here if you were to move. From Colorado to California, you might need to change your time zone. So there's easy options to change that. But right below that is Leidos flight service info. So this is step 2 of linking your iFlightPlanner for AOPA activity to your 1-800-WX-BRIEF count. And all you would really do is just enter your username, which will typically be your email address, for signing into 1-800-WXBRIEF.com. And then you would click validate username. And as long as it matches up and you've already authorized this, as we showed you on the other site, you'll be all set. And now your activity is linked with 1-800-WX-BRIEF and flight service. One of the really great features about that is if you do a lot of pre-flight planning online through iFlightPlanner for AOPA, and then you're 10 minutes from flight time and you need to call flight service to talk about a flight plan or to get a kind of the rest of the detail on weather brief or see if anything changed, they're going to be able to much more easily pull up your information if it's linked in this way. So a couple other items to highlight real quick while we're here, and these are both rooted in your feedback from the last 3.5, 4 weeks. So thank you for sharing that. Under weather options, the second option is new as of this morning, and it allows you to set your default for a weather brief, whether you want it to be translated into plain language or have the classic raw weather brief format, which was the only option before. And so we encourage you, if you prefer the plain language brief, to come into My Settings, change that. On any given flight, you could change it back, but now the default at least would be the translated version, which is obviously in many cases is much easier to read. So that's number one, the setting that we wanted to highlight that's new today. The second one is under flight planning options, and that's minimize airway waypoints. And we know that many airways have a lot of reporting points along the way, and in a navigation log, that can become quite cumbersome. So if you'd rather see less of those, you can check this new option as of today. And that will reduce the number of waypoints that are in your navigation log. If there's no significant course or altitude change at that waypoint, it will be excluded from the navigation log, which will give you a simpler, shorter navigation log, which is better for printing, as well as oftentimes easier to look at and identify where you are within your flight. So those are two new options that we released this morning based on your feedback. So we'll go ahead and click Save Settings at the bottom. And now we're back to our Flight Planner home. And one other note here is just to real quickly highlight the rest of the navigation, as if you are interested in digging into different parts of iFlightPlanner for AOPA, is along the top you'll see airports, aircraft, flights, and help, as well as the My Account menu. We encourage you to pop through those. The flights menu especially has custom locations and stored routes, so you can always manage those there, as well as click through to My Flights, which would be a complete list of the flights that you have planned, filed, briefed, etc., through iFlightPlanner for AOPA. So I think we're ready to plan a flight, Eric.
Excellent. Thanks for walking through that. So this next part for actually planning a flight, I have to admit that, I had been using iFlightPlanner for maybe about a month actually before we launched, as we were starting to develop it out and make the version. And I have to admit, this caught me off guard too when I first loaded up the flight planning part of iFlightPlanner, and I had this big box on my screen that I could enter in the details for my flight, but then it took up a lot of the map space and I could not figure out how to get rid of that. And I felt, I eventually figured it out, but it did trip me up, and apparently it has tripped up a lot of our users as well, because this has been one of the common parts and things that people don't know how to do initially, although it's staring, again, it was staring at me right in the face and I never saw it. So, Andy, walk us through setting up a new flight, starting with the trip planning kind of window there, showing how to open and close that, and take us through all the different steps that would be involved in setting up an initial flight.
Sure, I'll hop into the trip planning interface. It's as simple as clicking this green Plan a New Flight button. And Eric, to alleviate your pain point and potentially many of the other members, this planner console, you can hide it by simply clicking Planner here in the top center of the screen. You can show and hide the nav log just the same. We'll come back to that once we've actually planned a flight, so we can see what the nav log looks like. But you can show and hide the planner just by clicking it from there in the top center.
Just a real quick note there too to share, and the reason it's designed that way is because the planner, those basics, the from, the to, really pertain to the map, the weather brief, the file, all the things that you see in the top right corner there. And so we allow you to toggle that planner open or closed so that you can make changes no matter which screen within there that you're on.
Yeah, it's a good point, John. And when we're in the planner console too, a lot of this information is defaulted from that default aircraft profile. So when you are planning a flight, and even before you plan a flight, or as capabilities of your aircraft may change, definitely check back into your aircraft profile. And as you continue to fly it and adjust speeds, etc., you can go in and fine tune those airspeeds and those climb and descent rates to really dial it in, because we are able to use that each time we send that to the planning engine. And so we're planning for your aircraft each time we do it. So let's plan a flight. We're going to plan one from Ann Arbor to Frederick. When you see these boxes, your list of my airports is always going to be right here on the left. So it makes it really easy to pull the airports that you're flying from or to often. I'm going to go ahead and grab Frederick here as well. And one of the other big things too that members asked about, Eric, was how to select different routing types. It defaults to direct or even perhaps custom. And when it's on custom, you can enter the waypoints if you know exactly the way that you're going to fly from A to B. But for this flight, just for an example here, we're going to grab low altitude airways. We've got the basics here for our flight, and just simply click this plan flight button. That's going to send your aircraft details to the planning engine, and there we have it. We've got our route from Ann Arbor down to Frederick. Kind of moving in, Eric, right from probably the next hottest topic was route rubber banding. The previous method, and frankly, it still works this way if you need it to, was to have to click a waypoint to be able to click and drag it. That's no longer the case. Now you can just hover on the route. As soon as it turns magenta, you can click and drag that waypoint to your heart's content. Whenever you move a route and then release your mouse button, or if you're perhaps on your mobile device, you lift your finger, you're presented with this location pop-up, which allows you to snap that rubber band to either an airport, a nav aid, or if you have a custom location saved, you can do that. I'll grab this waypoint here. You can see that the marker shifted just a little bit to get right on the specific lat long for that location. And one of the nice things too is anytime you make a change to a route, you get this flag here on the left that says flight route modified or flight modified. Tap or click to replan, and we can go ahead and do that. And now we're going to have our updated nav log with a few more waypoints in it. Eric, does that answer the question there on route rubber banding?
Yeah, I think it does, and I think that's going to make a lot of people very happy. John, thank you for working diligently on getting that enabled. I know, again, that was when I first started using it. That was something that tripped me up too. I was just so familiar with the legacy planner and how it worked, and just grabbing the rubber band. Interesting antidote on that is we had that same exact problem in the early days, and this goes back into the mid 2000s when we were using the Jepson planner, where you actually had to do very much the same thing as the way iFlightPlanner worked, where you had to insert a point and then drag it. We actually had to create a double line in the flight planner. No one ever noticed that, just because it was sort of a little workaround, but that's how we had to get around that, so you could actually just grab the line and move it. So yes, I totally understand why it was working the way it was working. We had the same problem with the Jet Flight Planner early on when we were developing it, so I'm glad you were able to bring that back to iFlightPlanner now, so it's a familiar feel for everyone.
I think it's just a great underscoring of the value of member feedback, though. That was such a popular question over the last 3-4 weeks, and that's always driven our priorities. So we appreciate everybody sharing that. I know it could have been frustrating in the first few moments, but thank you for sharing that and help us understand what we needed to address with highest priority.
Right. One of the other requests we got regarding the nav log. Now we'll show the nav log here as it is in iFlightPlanner, and I did see a few comments here in the chat I apologize ahead of time. We're probably not going to be able to respond and answer every one of the comments we see in here. Just limited time and one person. But I did want to let you know, yes, there is a lot of the PDF version or the kneeboard format of our navlog was very popular from the old product. That was an evolution of many, many years of refinement, and it is not the easiest to take an HTML or produce that kneeboard format and produce it consistently whenever you have a variable information. I don't want to promise anything, but we did pull the old code that generated that PDF kneeboard. We pulled that out of the old system, so we saved the code that creates that. And again, as I said earlier, anybody that's more technical on the technical side of things will understand that you can't necessarily take old obsolete code and just push a button and have it generate new code. So we do have that. We understand the fundamentals of creating that and recreating that. That is something that we will be looking at in the future, is the potential to bring that old kneeboard format PDF back that has the frequencies on it, the fuel and Hobbs times in and out and all of that. So we have the code, we saved it. We'll just see what we can actually do in the future to bring that back. But there has been an enhancement, a user-requested enhancement to the existing navlog in the way of frequencies in Morse code. So, Andy, you want to just take a second and show that?
Yeah, it's a really simple addition, but one that could be easily overlooked as well. You'll now see the frequencies as well as the Morse code added as part of the navlog. That was not there when we launched 4 weeks ago, and now, like you said, thanks to feedback and some extra hours by John and the technology team to be able to add that back in. So anytime a VOR or its variation is part of your route, you're going to see the frequency as well as its Morse code there for you.
Excellent. Great. Glad to hear it. So a couple other things. We've gotten some calls and some support tickets we're working on about showing fuel prices and getting information on airspace and TFRs and all that. And that works a little differently than the legacy flight planner. So Andy, just take a minute or so and just show some of what we call like the map interactions. How do you get information like fuel prices and airspace and all that from the map itself?
Sure. So there's a lot of functionality in just a simple left click anywhere on the map. I'm going to click inside this TFR. Well, actually, now it's a future TFR. That was another request. Is all future TFRs in the planner are now colored orange. Active TFRs will remain red as they always have been in iFlightPlanner, but now anything that is coming up allows you is now colored in orange. And a really good way to find out what the details of that TFR is, you left click anywhere, you're going to see this location menu pop up. But then down here in the lower right corner, there's a couple of different functions. There's one that just allows you to center the map. There's the airspace at location, which I'm going to hop into right now, and then you can see the fuel tank for nearby retail fuel prices. But let's hop into the airspace here. And what that's going to do is take a vertical profile of all of the airspace, whether it's class airspace, whether it is a TFR, whether it's AirMets or SigMets, and we're going to see this menu pop up on the right side of the screen. One of the really cool features about it is we see this area line. When you hover your mouse over the area, while it turns blue in the menu, it also highlights that specific boundary of the airspace on the map. So if I move this between one of the inner circles of the TFR or the future TFR to the outer, you can see that change. It works the same with the class airspace. So as I cycle through each one of these, you're going to see not only the details of that shelf. So right here, we can see that this shelf is from 4 up to 10. It gets highlighted on the map. And so it's really easy to dive in. While we have all the FAA produced charts as part of iFlightPlanner. Sometimes this more interactive airspace feature allows you to really dive into the details of it. And with the details, we know there's a lot of detail as it relates to TFRs and other restricted airspace. You can click this little page icon here on the right side of the screen. You can see that it says View Airspace Text Definition. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And as it spins up, you're going to see the details of that TFR over Ypsilanti for POTUS coming up. Once you dissect that text, you can click the X in the upper right-hand corner to close it. And then if you're done with the airspace altogether, you can just click Done. And what it's going to do is it's not only going to hide the menu, but it's going to clear all of the airspace that we had activated.
Andy, a good note there too is just
prices as well.
Go ahead. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
John, I think you and I were stepping on each other there. I didn't hear the question.
I was just going to say that might be a good spot to just show the map layers too. So if you always want all Class B airspace or always want all restricted areas, how you could quickly turn on and off layers that are listed under the map layers.
Sure. So the map layers menu is the stack up here in the very upper right-hand corner, just below the X. When we turn on the map layers menu or activate the map layers menu, you can see you can turn on all airmets or SIGMETs or individual ones. Same thing with class airspace. So if I turn on the class Bravo, you're going to see Detroit, Cleveland, Philly light up there, or excuse me, Pittsburgh. And same thing with airspace. If you want to turn MOAs on, you can see one just appeared at the very left-hand side of the screen. Prohibited areas, etc. So what you can also do here, there's a command to save defaults right in the top kind of left side of that map layers menu. That when you click save defaults, it's going to allow you to always have these map layers active when you revisit the planning interface.
Excellent. And Andy, I'm going to put you on the spot. This is something we didn't talk about earlier, but
Sure.
Since you have a route up there, and I'm starting to see just it peeking out there in the lower right-hand corner, but could you talk about the fuel warning lines, the orange and the red line? That's something that, iFlightPlanner has that works a little bit differently than the way the legacy planner worked. And I think it's important to call attention to that and just to show how the fuel warning lines for that are how they're calculated and how they're represented. So I sorry about putting you on the spot, but if you could just take a second and review that.
Hey, it's all good. I may have John talk about how they're actually calculated, but I can certainly talk about how they're represented and why we set them up the way that we did. So the orange line that you see kind of bisecting the route, what it does is it draws a perpendicular line based on where you've set your estimated reserve for that flight. So if I pull the planner console back down, you can see that based on my aircraft profile, I've got 10 gallons as my reserve. And so what it's going to do there is plan the route. You can see with that extra 10 gallons, this red line is essentially an estimated zero fuel line. And 10 gallons prior to that is our orange, where we're going to start burning the reserve. An interesting feature, and like we said, Eric, we didn't necessarily talk about this in the pre-brief, but what you can do is you can allow the planner to calculate the ramp fuel that you're going to need for this flight. If you don't want it to automatically calculate it, and you're always going to take off with full tanks, you can change that, or you can leave it on auto to be able to have the planner calculate that for you. So does that answer the question, Eric?
Yeah, I do. It does. And thank you for taking just a minute to go over that. Like I said, that does work a little bit differently than the way we were doing it with just shading the route line. And it also, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but that red line would be a zero fuel line, correct?
That is correct. The gap you're seeing between the orange and the red line represents that 10 gallons of reserve fuel. So based on, and what that's doing, it's in real time, it's looking at how much fuel have we burned on this flight to get from A to B, and so that we can take not just your default aircraft performance, but based on the winds of this particular flight, what type of performance are we seeing? And that gap represents what that 10 gallons would get you beyond that. The small gap you see between the destination airport and the orange line really is the taxi fuel that you'll typically would use when you arrive at that airport, but it still is fuel that's on board. So that's why you see a small gap there, and then you see the larger gap. Any given flight, probably the most common thing you might do is look and say, I have worse weather, or I'm flying into an area I'm not familiar with, or I'm flying into an area where I might be put in a hold pattern. And so you might want to add fuel there and say, you know what, I want to take 15 gallons of reserve fuel here instead of 10. The ramp fuel, again, is going to automatically calculate with that, and you're going to see those lines shift a little bit once we replan the flight, which is going to automatically update your navigation log. And that's just giving yourself more buffer for a flight that maybe you're not as certain about. And again, as Andy mentioned, you could turn off auto and you could put in whatever fuel number you want, and the lines would adjust yet again. You could bump that to 60, and now you would see what that would mean. So a lot of flexibility there.
Perfect. Great. We're about 10 minutes out here, so we want to keep it moving along. But there is one thing. In fact, there was somebody just put this into the chat here a little bit ago, and I remember seeing this as a support ticket that came in, I believe it was this morning, talking about reversing a route. So you've gone through this, you've planned a route, you've saved that, and how you go about actually planning the reverse trip. Andy, probably easiest since you have control there, maybe to show that.
Sure. So a couple of steps before that, if this is a route that we know that we're going to fly often, what we can do, excuse me for showing and hiding that planner console a little quick, this single star next to the plan flight button allows you to save this route as a stored route. You can see it's Ann Arbor to Frederick here, and we've tested this one out a couple of times, so I'm just gonna call it number one. One of the other options here is also to include the current aircraft with that stored route. So if you know you're always gonna fly this with a particular aircraft that you have in your account, you can tie that up, and then it's as simple as clicking Save Stored Route. And you simply retrieve that by clicking the 3 stars up here in the upper left. So if we just opened up the planner interface, we saw that there was nothing pre-populated. I can grab that Ann Arbor to Frederick number 1. It's going to pull all of that information in. To plan the reverse, Eric, I'm going to hop out of the interface real quick using the X in that upper right-hand corner. It's going to ask if I want to save the trip. I am going to save it. And one of the options, it's going to bring us back to our flights. Right from this menu here, those 3 dots on the very right, there's an option to say plan return flight. So we've obviously planned Ann Arbor to Frederick. I'm now going to click plan return, and it's going to go ahead and populate that route in reverse. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. And while it's that identical route, that is now it from Frederick up to Ann Arbor, and you can see by the fuel lines that the reserve line and the zero fuel lines have changed. You can, just by looking at those lines, Eric, tell that the wind's moving in certainly one direction over the other.
Yeah, very, very obvious. Okay, thanks for doing that. I'm sorry I'm taking you off script here a little bit. I'm sure, but
happy to do it. And I know we're on the clock here. So one of the other great features, John mentioned the setting that actually controls this, but here is that translated weather brief option that's now in the weather brief itself. It will always pull your default setting, but if you did not want it to pull the translated brief for whatever reason, for this flight in particular, you can just uncheck that. I'll turn it back on, and request the brief. So now we can see that everything is going to be in plain language. If you want to access those settings, you click the gear in the upper right, and you can access those really quickly. Same as printing as well as refreshing the brief. That's really, really easy. And then one of the other cool features too, and I don't know if it was talked about at the very beginning, but the flight plan filing screen now has a bit more intelligent logic built into it. So if you were to change the route, even by a single waypoint, or a time by 10 minutes or an hour, the flight plan filing screen is going to recognize that change. And when the flight plan is filed, if the logic deems necessary that we amend or cancel and refile that flight plan, the platform is going to do that for you. So there's a little bit of extra logic in here. There's some restrictions with flight plan filing in IFR flight plans in particular, where there's a 46-minute limit. So if we're inside that window, we're going to be able to let you as the member and the pilot and command know exactly what needs to be done with that flight plan if changes to the route or any particulars about the flight have changed.
I just want to clarify that one real quick, Andy. Is it'll show you there. Once you filed the flight plan, if you were to make a critical change like a departure time or route, it will say amend required, which means that you need to file it again. Essentially, you would also see that in the trip summary, which we haven't opened. But if you look in the top left and open that summary, you would see it noted there as well. This will show you the filing status, and if you had already filed it and then you made a critical change, it would give you an orange warning to let you know that you do need to actively refile that flight plan.
Perfect. Thanks for clarifying that, John.
Yeah. Thanks, John.
Okay, so now we have our trip planned. Filed it, we briefed it, we know where it's everything is ready to go. Take us through, Andy, the flight documents, and this is something that I really like. I think this is a great feature, for especially even if you're flying with a tablet or an EFB, just having something you can print out as a backup. And having a lot of information available to you, I think is a very important feature. I know one time I was flying, I used to always have two iPads with me. And I remember one hot summer day, both those iPads thermally shut down. And I was without, the two iPads. I had plenty of backup navigation, and I did have a printed nav log with me, and I was very thankful to have that. But just take us through the flight documents part of iFlightPlanner and let us see what all is available.
Yeah, that's those situations. While we can do our best to plan around them, it's obviously best to plan for them and hope we don't need them. And while everything that iFlightPlanner is, obviously we're a technology company, and it's we have a lot of software available to us to make this planning process easier. We know that there's still a lot of comfort that comes from having those paper backups. And so that's why we make it easy for you to print your certified weather brief, to print your nav log. One of the other pieces that Eric mentioned is this flight document. Clicking the green button here in the upper left corner, I'll bring it here to the center of the screen. This is a cockpit document, a flight document to take with you that has local charting, the current weather conditions, your departure frequencies, spot to write the ATIS info, a chart summary, the routing, etc., your nav log. So everything is in here where you can have a one-stop print to bring an entire document with you into the cockpit. You can see the NOTAMs here actually highlight the closed areas, so those are really visible. But this is, like I said, there's a lot of information, including fuel pricing and FBOs at your destination. So a lot of information here, but then also we make it very easy to print or download PDF copies of all the different available documents, diagrams, or procedures for each airport. If you know you wanted all of them, you can click download all, and it's going to bundle up every single document available for Frederick into a single PDF zip file or a multi-page PDF. Same thing for Ann Arbor. Or if there were just certain documents that you wanted to bring with you for Ann Arbor, you can just tag those and click download selected. What you can also do too is click on each one, and it'll bring you to the individual diagram or document itself. So there you can see the airport diagram for our home base in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Excellent. Perfect. Thanks for walking through that. That's very, very helpful. So we're about 5 minutes here. We're going to wrap this up and be sensitive to everyone's time. John, take us, for people that want to get more information on some of the stuff maybe we didn't cover here tonight, or watch some of the videos that you guys have produced on individual features. Just take us through where people can find the user guide and how they access the online videos that are available.
Certainly. First and foremost, the point I want to make is that we are here to help as the AOPA Pilot Information Center. So certainly know that don't be shy about asking questions or providing feedback. We know there's always a learning curve with a new service like this. So that's number one. But number two, we also try and provide a number of resources to do self-service help. So you can find answers, you can explore your own. And we touched on the navigation menu along the top there in the Flight Planner home, but the help button is really where it's at. So we'll go ahead and click on that. First and foremost, we have the iFlightPlanner for AOPA user guide, and there's a big green button there that you can click on to open that. That's going to go through quite a few things, some of it in excruciating detail, but certainly you can dig through and see if there's a particular topic you're interested or curious about. Beyond that, there's a set of YouTube videos that's right below there. So we encourage you to watch those. We've tried to keep them relatively short, so they're not a large time commitment, but that you can get a lot of information quickly. There's a little playlist button at the top right of those, so make sure to click on that. There's not just one video there, there's 6. You can also always go on the AOPA YouTube channels as well as ours to find additional information there. We also have a support request form that you can submit through to the AOPA Pilot Information Center, so that's an option. As well as the phone number that's there. But again, just reiterating, we know there's going to be questions. We've enjoyed the feedback that we've gotten the last 4 weeks, and certainly if you can't find something or it doesn't make sense or you think there's a way it could be better, use any of those options to reach out to us and let us know. Great.
Thanks for doing that. So one thing I think 2 last things we want to go over here is just to reiterate the difference between using iFlightPlanner on a mobile device in what we call the kind of browser version that requires an internet connection versus the EFB version of iFlightPlanner, which can work, it downloads the databases and has everything offline just like an EFB would that you could use while flying. And then just give us a little bit of a glimpse on something we're talking about that the old legacy product had that we're trying to bring into this one, which is, I believe you called it, I like the term, bring your own EFB. So touch on those kind of differences. And one of the reasons I bring that up is the AOPA Go mobile product that we had. Whenever the legacy flight planner went away that was powered by Jepson and that engine went away, that stopped most of the functionality of the flight planning part of AOPA Go. They were very much connected and dependent. But there was really no need to reinvent that wheel because iFlightPlanner, the browser version, runs extremely well on an iPhone or even on an Android phone, that you can do much of the same functionality you could do in AOPA Go, you can actually use iFlightPlanner for on your mobile device without necessarily having the installed EFB app. So I know that's confusing. I probably just confused myself talking about that, but John, maybe you could do a little bit better job of putting some light on that.
Yeah, I think I'll just return back to where we kind of started this as talking about the 3 versions of iFlightPlanner, and iFlightPlanner for AOPA, which is web-based from any device. So any modern web browser, you can pull that up. There's no app required. You can use it from an Android device, an iOS device, PC, a MacBook, you name it. So iFlightPlanner for AOPA, that's included in your member program and your membership with AOPA. no questions about it. It's really if you want to add the native app capability, the EFB capability. EFB is just that acronym that kind of gets used throughout aviation for it. But it's that native in-flight GPS moving map capabilities, and that's where we do offer the core and the premium versions and again, AOPA members get 20% off of that, so you get a complete web-based and EFB planning for either $39.99 a year or $79.99 a year, depending on which version you choose. But really, to answer your key question, Eric, about bring your own EFB, is that we know that pilots want choice. They want the opportunity to choose what EFB they use. There's many pilots that prefer Android, and so we don't want to have them say, well, we don't have an option here. So our bring your own EFB program, number one, is that one of the features that we're working on in iFlightPlanner for iPad and iFlightPlanner for iPhone is that you'd be able to push your flight plan information to another EFB within your own iOS device. You might have another flight planning EFB that you've enjoyed, but you want to use the web-based capabilities of iFlightPlanner for AOPA. We're going to work towards making that happen. Number two is that to work with Android app developers and allow them to connect into iFlightPlanner.com, where your data is securely stored, so that they can access a flight that you have planned. So those are exciting features. I think, Eric, those are probably going to be maybe the topic of the next live stream if we can do this again. And we'll look forward to sharing more with everybody about what's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely looking forward to doing another one. And before we sign off here, we just want to thank everyone for attending. We've had nearly 500 people here the entire live stream, which is outstanding. Wow. Thank you for sticking with us on this. Keep the comments coming. Let's keep them constructive. This is something that we will work with the iFlightPlanner team to enhance this product, bring some of those features that the legacy planner had that were maybe unique, try to bring some of those features into iFlightPlanner and provide the most flexibility from this tool that you would expect from an AOPA product. So just keep those coming. Like I said, John showed how to contact our Pilot Information Center. That's probably the easiest way to get that into the system so that we don't lose track of it. Andy, John, myself, and some of our other product team at AOPA, we talk twice a week. We have a standing meeting twice a week where we review kind of the feedback we're getting so we know what's going on. So it is helpful to get that information and so we can act on that and we can try to bring it forward. We do want to do more live streams. I hope you found this helpful. I hope everyone is safe, healthy. I hope you're eventually getting back to some sort of sense of normalcy. And until we talk next time, thank you all for joining us. Take care.